So, in the first three parts of this series, I've explained seven of the eight gods on the boat of Ra, and the only one left to explain is Ra himself. So, I'll explain Ra in part five, along with other sacred knowledge to help you guys understand the connection between the planetary bodies in the sky and our earthly bodies and the blood running through our veins. So it's important to know that the eight people on the boat of Ra were indeed flesh and blood human beings, yet they were also gods. And when it comes to the so-called eight people who survived the flood and repopulated the earth, a story that's been told in almost every language throughout the earth for thousands of years. The real origin of this story starts with these eight people on the boat of Ra. And when it comes to their journey in this boat, represented in this particular stela, this stela is not showing us a cosmic journey, as many people would assume. But if we examine this stela, we have three important clues that tell us that this is not a cosmic journey. Number one, the absence of the scarab beetle. The scarab beetle was used in Egyptian hieroglyphs to show the cosmic journey. This is because the scarab beetle is the only non-vertebrate animal, which means he has no backbone, that lives upon the earth, that navigates itself according to the Milky Way galaxy. But we see here in this particular stela, this journey of the boat of Ra, in the hieroglyphs, they show no scarab beetle, which would indicate a cosmic journey. Number two is the bee hieroglyph that's present underneath of the boat of Ra. The bee is native to America. So when we see 5,000-year-old hieroglyphs in Egypt showing us the bee in Africa, I think it becomes quite obvious who brought the bee to Africa. There's over 4,000 species of bees native to America. There's one species in particular called the Melipona. And the Melipona bee is native to South America, and the Mayans called this bee the Royal Lady. And the map at the top shows us that the Melipona bee of the Mayans was brought to Africa. And it's no coincidence that artifacts that show the two ladies show not only the vulture and the cobra, which is the hieroglyph symbol for the two ladies, but it also shows us a bee. So the two women, or the two ladies of the first dynasty of Egypt after the flood, had the bee as their symbol, a symbol representing America. And number three is the sun cross found beneath the boat of Ra. And the sun cross symbol wasn't something that was frequently used by the ancient Egyptians, which is why the sun cross beneath the boat of Ra in this stela is particularly interesting, because it's also, just like the bee, an ancient symbol representing North America. These are just some of the sun crosses that were used by the black natives of North America when white people arrived. So the sun cross has been a symbol for North America for a very long time, even prior to the arrival of white people. And even when white people did arrive, they called this land Tierra Sancti Cruces, which means land of the Holy Crossing. So all of these things collectively, the lack of the scarab beetle, which represents a cosmic journey, and the two symbols, the bee and the sun cross, two symbols that represent the Americas. All of these things together indicate that this was not a cosmic journey, but an actual earthly journey. And it would appear that the inhabitants of the boat of Ra came from the Americas. And this is also proven in the procession of Namur, who is Osiris, who comes to Egypt after the flood, and he has a procession of boats that are filled with multiple animals, just like the story of Noah's flood. Another thing that shows us that the Egyptians of the first dynasty came from the Americas are all of the ancient temples that can be found within the Grand Canyon. And three of the most important temples found in the Grand Canyon are the temples of Ra, Osiris, and Isis. And all of these temples are much older than the ones that can be found in Egypt. So I want to show you some artifacts that are linked to the eight people on the boat of Ra. And these artifacts can be found in the Americas and some of them in other areas of the world. And to the left, we have an Egyptian statue of Sekhmet. And to the right, this is an artifact that was found in Marco Island in Florida. The date of the artifact found in Marco Island is unknown, but it's located in the Marco Island Historical Museum, and it's clearly an artifact of Sekhmet. And I've shown you guys this one before in The Mayans Were Egyptians. To the left, we have an artifact of Sekhmet found in South America, and this artifact is clearly much older than the ones that can be found in Egypt. So the Mayans not only have artifacts of Sekhmet that predate the Egyptian artifacts, but they also have artifacts of Thoth, or the man with the face of a monkey. To the left is a Mayan artifact showing the man with the face of a monkey. And here are 5,000-year-old hieroglyphs that were found in Australia. And again, the 5,000-year-old date is important because this is the time of the flood. This is the time of the journey of the boat of Ra and the 8 inhabitants who survived the flood. And also in Australia, there is a hieroglyph of the son of Set, who is also known as Dumotef or Wetwawet, also known as Anubis. So this tells us that the inhabitants of the boat of Ra 5,000 years ago were traveling the world. Not only are there artifacts of them shown in South America and North America, but also in Egypt as well as Australia. And remember I showed you guys the ancient temples that can be found in the Grand Canyon? And the Temple of Ra is located in Arizona. And this is an artifact found in Arizona. And at the top of the artifact, there's an engraving of a temple. And speaking of Arizona, one of my subscribers had actually pointed this out to me, so I wanted to share it with you guys. There was a Saturday Night Live skit done years ago by Steve Martin, and he performed a song, and the song was about King Tut, and the lyrics of the song say that King Tut was born in Arizona. And the interesting thing about this is that the Saturday Night Live skit is actually based on real archaeological evidence that's documented in a book called Epic Encounters. So there is evidence to suggest that Tutankhamun was born in the Grand Canyon or originated in the Grand Canyon, specifically in Arizona. And that could explain the huge cover-up of all of the Egyptian artifacts that were found in the Grand Canyon. One of the artifacts found in the Grand Canyon is this alabaster egg that I've shown you guys before. And on the face of the alabaster egg is a picture of the high priest of Tutankhamun, and he is clearly a Mayan. And when it comes to the 8 ancestors on the boat of Ra, they were known and venerated all over the world, even by white Greeks and Romans who invaded Egypt. And during this time, the Greeks and the Romans began to create their own versions of the original Egyptian gods. This is one example. This is a Roman coin that was made in 98 AD, and it shows the Roman version of the god Happy, which is one of the 4 sons of Horus, and next to Happy is the Horus bird. So we have a Roman coin showing their version of Horus and Happy. And this is a Roman statue showing their version of the god Horus. And this is a statue of the Roman version of the god Anubis. And remember that Anubis was also known as Wepwawet. And Wepwawet or Anubis is the son of Set. So Anubis was worshipped by the Romans as well as his father Set. And remember, as I've said, Set is Amseti, also known as Djet. And Set became venerated in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Setianism. And he is known as a biblical patriarch. The Romans also worshipped Isis, and they even created multiple temples dedicated to the worship of Isis. And this is a white Roman priest performing ceremonies in the temple of Isis. And to the right of the priest, they're also showing the head of Anubis as well. So the original worship of Isis and her son Horus or Djer later became the worship of Mary and her son Jesus. So here we have Isis and her sister, also known as the 2 ladies, And this is an ancient Egyptian stela showing the resurrection of the sun. And to the right, we have the much later Roman version of the resurrection of the sun, showing Jesus Christ and the two women on either side of him. So we can see how the original Egyptian gods were incorporated into the later religions of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And as I've said in part 1, these 8 ancestors on the boat of Ra are the root and the source of all religious knowledge. Even the so-called Lord's Prayer originates in Egypt. It comes from the Egyptian king Amenhotep, who originally created this hymn in dedication to the god Ra. So this will conclude part 4. I will continue this series in part 5 by explaining the god Ra.